Let's deploy a Docker application on DigitalOcean using DigitalOcean's container registry. In the previous video, I showed you how to deploy a Docker application without using the container registry, just copying it over to the server and then building it and deploying it. This is a really straightforward way to get your Docker application up running in production, so you can check that out if that's what you're interested in. But stick around here if you're interested in using the container registry. I'll talk about the benefits of using a container registry in general, and then I'll show you how to do this with DigitalOcean. And we're going to get our microservice up and running using this approach on DigitalOcean right now. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Alex. My goal on ZAZENCODES is to help make you a more well-rounded developer. I'm teaching full-stack data science and sharing Zen lifestyle advice. One reason you might be interested in using a container registry is for an organization where you want to manage a lot of different Docker images and their versions, and you want to be able to have access controls for different people in your organization to access certain images and not access other images, and also for security reasons, because then you can sort of use these container registry tools to scan your images and make sure there's no vulnerabilities inside of them. So that I all kind of fit into this like organization type idea. The other sort of side of things why you might want to use a container registry is for things like efficiency, reliability, and integration. So for example, by pushing your application code into a container registry, you can then pull it onto many different servers. So this makes replication a lot easier. And in terms of app integrations, cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, GCP, and orchestration tools like Kubernetes all natively work with cloud registries. So for example, like I'll show you in my deploy a microservice on Kubernetes video, Kubernetes needs to be configured around your Docker image being in a container registry. In that video, I show you how to do all that on DigitalOcean. Now, let's get to the demonstration. We're going to install the DigitalOcean command line tool, and then I'm going to be creating a container registry and pushing my image into that registry. Then we're going to pull it onto a server and get it running in production. Let's go. If you want to follow along with this demonstration, you can grab the code from my GitHub. Inside of this source folder, I've got one on Reg Microservices with Python, and this is the application that we're going to be deploying. But I'm going to be making a few changes. So let's start here. I'm going to open up Vim, and I've talked about this application already in 2 previous videos, so links to those in the video description and at the end of this one. And I won't be talking about it extensively, but here's our Docker file. This is effectively what we're going to push into the container registry, this Docker application right here. In order to run this, I have a run app.sh, and so this code, I'm still going to be running this on my server. However, instead of building it, I no longer need to do that. And I'm just going to be running it after I pull the image. But notice these 2 lines. What I've done here is I'm sharing my app code as a volume. But I no longer want to do that. Because I want to package this up, I'm going to change my Docker file so that this isn't shared as a volume anymore. So I'm actually going to make a copy of my Docker file, and I'll call it dockerfile.deploy. And let me click on that one here. And what I want to do here is bundle all of my code up. So after I install my requirements, I'm going to do it down here. And what I'm going to do is copy this Reg Microservice folder. Let me just grab that, put it in here. So I want to copy this guy over. Where do I want to put it? I want to put it inside of app. So I'm just going to say inside of app, like that. So I want to make sure this is working locally before I do anything with the container registry. So let's try and build this. And I'm going to need to do this differently. I'm going to say build from dockerfile.deploy. Now let's run this. I'm going to say docker run, and I'll say .rm. I'll map port 8000 into port 8000, and I'll say .env file is going to be my .env. And then I want to share my data as a volume. So I have my data going to data. And then lastly, I just want the name of my Docker image that I built. So that's going to be this one here. I'll just copy that, paste that in here. And notice I'm not using this volume anymore because I've baked that in. Make sure this works okay. It seems to be working. It's initiating my server. And I'll just make a quick request to make sure we're doing okay here. So I can actually just do this in my browser. So if I pop this open and I want to go to the endpoint of health, and for me it's saying it's healthy, so everything's working fine and we're good to go. I'm going to bundle this up. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to get rid of this. So if I type docker image ls, I can see that image right here. And now let's go over to DigitalOcean and set up our container registry so that we can push this into that. Over on DigitalOcean, I'm going to click login. If you don't have a DigitalOcean account, then I've left an affiliate link that you can use to sign up in the video description. Doing this will help you support my channel and give you a bunch of free credits to spend in order to play around with DigitalOcean services for free, including what we're going to be doing in this video. So I'm going to go down to Container Registry, and we're going to create a new one of these. I'm going to click Create Container Registry. I'm going to call it ZAZENCODES because I'm going to use this to put all of my containers into for this channel. And over here, I'm going to pick something that's close to me, so not Australia. Now, I would love to pick this starter one, which gives me one repository and 500 megabytes of storage. However, check this out. My repository is 1.15 gigabytes in size. So I'm going to need more than this amount of storage. So for me, I'm going to click this basic one, and I'll click Create Registry. Here I'm presented with a Getting Started dialog, and the first thing that I'm going to do is install the DigitalOcean command line tool, and then I'm going to log in to this registry. So if I look at this guide for installing this on Mac, I could use Brew, but I could also use this guide here, which works as well on Linux. So I'm going to do this one. But actually, I've been testing this, and this URL is not going to work for me. This is for Linux, but is not going to work on Mac OS. What I can do is I can go to the releases page, and for Mac OS, I need this Darwin one, and I want to use the ARM64 for my MacBook M series, like the M chip. So I'm going to copy link address, and now I'm going to go back to my terminal here, and I'm going to say curl-o and -l. L is going to follow redirects and download this file, and you can see it's downloading right here onto my computer. Next, what I want to do is untar this. So the command for that is tar xf, and then I want the name of this file, .tl1-4- there it is. That'll extract that, and now I'll have access to it with this doc.tl local, like it's in this current directory. But this is going to be my executable. So if I run that, we can see like it's working. This is a binary file that's going to be able to execute the commands that I want to do. I want to do this auth command first, actually, to authenticate it. So now I'm going to hop back and continue following the steps. So I've just unzipped it like this, untarred it, and I'm going to run this final command to move this from my current directory into the bin. So if I run here, this is going to put it inside of my path so that it'll be available anywhere on my computer as an executable. And I want to move this current file where I am right now over into here. So now what I can do is just type .tl from anywhere, and I'll be able to run this. So if I open up a new pane and type doc.tl, there it is. And that's working from there. Great. So next I need to create an API token. So I'm going to go to the Applications and API page in DigitalOcean, and I'm going to generate a new token. And this is just for you guys, so I'm going to just say YouTube temp, like that. Expire in 90 days is fine, and I will say full access for this guy, and I'll generate that. Here I've been given my token, and let's hop back over and see what the next step is. So I want to auth login, and I need to give this a context. So my context, let's see, my context is going to be YouTube temp. I'll just call it the same thing. And now it's asking for my access token. So over here, I can grab it. That's this guy. Hop back. I'm going to paste that in. Validating the token, and it looks like I'm good to go. Let's hop back over here and see what's next. So I can list my authentication, and I could switch to it. And let's see, the current is default. Yes, so I need to actually switch to it. So I can say auth switch and the context, and I'll say YouTube temp. The next thing I want to do is log into my container registry. I'm going to try using this command right here. And it says logging Docker into registry.digitalocean.com. Login valid for 30 days. Cool. Now if I say docker image ls, I can see I've built my image here like we just did a little while ago. So now I'm going to tag this image for the DigitalOcean registry. I'm going to say docker tag, and I'll paste the name of my repository on my local system. Now I'm going to set the registry as registry.digitalocean.com. ZAZENCODES, which is what I named my registry, and then I'm going to want to name it the same here as what I named it on my local system, AI Microservice, and I want to give it the tag of latest. Now if I again list my images, I can see there's another one here which is tagged for my DigitalOcean registry. So let's push that now. I'll just go ahead and copy this and I'll say docker push. This is just completed, so let's go over to the console. I'm going to refresh my registry page. Now if I scroll down, let's check out my repositories. You can see that I've only used 6% of my storage allocation. Here's my repository right here. It's called AI Microservice. By the way, because this is under 500 megabytes, I should be able to get away with using this for free without having to pay $5 a month. I didn't expect that. So if I go to my settings for my subscription plan, let's see if I can actually downsize that. Awesome, looks like I was able to do that. And over in my repositories, yeah, this is all still working. The next thing I want to do is pull this into a server and deploy this using this container registry. So let's do that right now. Hey guys, just a quick interruption from the sponsor of today's video, which is myself. You can head over to my Patreon and you can even join as a free supporter over there. And another great zero-cost way to support the channel is by signing up for my free weekly email newsletter. I'm going to create a new droplet. I want to create the smallest possible server, so I'm going to stay in New York because I know there I'll have access to this little guy. If I go to the regular and all the way down to the left, I've got a nice little $4 a month server. Let's try and get it up and running here. I only have 10 gigabytes and half a gig of RAM. But let's see if that's good enough for me. I've uploaded my computer's SSH key. I have more instruction on this in my last video. If you don't know about SSH keys, you can check that part out in order to get that working. And I always tick this to add some metrics and monitoring. And I'm ready to go. Let's create this droplet. Here it's given me an IP address, so I'm going to be able to connect to this. I'll go to my terminal and I'll just say SSH root at, and I'll type that IP address in. Since it's the first time connecting, it needs to add that to the known hosts, and now I'm in. Now inside of here, I need access to two things. The first is Docker, so let me go ahead and install that. I'm going to create a new script called setup docker install .sh, and inside of that, I'm going to go over to the Docker installation instructions, and I'm going to post this code here for installing using apt on Linux. I'll give that executable permissions by saying chmod +x on setup docker install like this, and then I'm going to run that. While that's running, let me go ahead and grab our next command. We're going to run this one here to install the actual Docker application. Paste that in. Now what I want to do is use the DigitalOcean command line tool, this doctl, in order to pull the Docker image from my registry. But check it out, it's not installed. So I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to run this snap install doctl in order to install that on this server. That's been installed, and let me say doctl to make sure this is running. The first thing I want to do is authorize this. So I'm going to say doctl auth init, and now I can access my, enter my token. So going back over to my tokens, that's over here. I had this YouTube temp token. Let's use that one again. I'll copy it, paste it in here, and authenticate. Looks like I don't have the right permissions because it's trying to create something in my root user directory, which I'm logged in as root. Let me see if I can kind of hack this together. I'm going to make that directory myself. And now let's try running this again. I've just got my token copied onto a clipboard here, so let's paste that in, see if this works. All right, we seem to be good to go here. Bit hacky, but we got it working. I was reading some thread over here where it seems to be an issue with Snap that other people are experiencing. And so I realized, well, I could just go ahead and create that directory myself. That's all we did. All that matters is we have access to doctl and that we're authenticated here. Now I'm going to use this same tool, doctl, and I'm going to say registry login. Again, it's giving me problems. It can't create this directory. Let's just do that myself. Try this again. Oh, interesting. So it's sort of warning me about this. Great. So let's do this, and that should give this snap executable that I've installed the right permissions. Snap is like instead of using apt, you can use snap to manage your binaries, your programs on Linux. All right, let's try this again. Now that I've given it the right access, good. We're good to go. We're logged in. And I'm ready to go and pull this image. So I'm going to clear my terminal so we're working fresh here. And what the goal is we want to pull our application and then run it. So I'm going to create a new helper script, and I'm going to call it run deployment.sh. And over in this file, what I want to do is first we're going to pull this. So I'm going to say docker pull, And now we're going to pull the image. So let's go over to our container registry over in DigitalOcean, and I'm going to copy this recent image tag. I'll come back and I'll paste that in. And check out how this looks. We have registry.digitalocean.com. That's where we've uploaded our image to. We could use other tools, by the way, like AWS has their own registry, or GCP, or Docker has their own registry. We're just using DigitalOcean because that's where we're going to deploy this. And this is what my image is tagged as. And once we have that, I want to run this. So I'm going to hop back to run app, and we're going to run a command much like this. Let's copy that, come back, put this in here. So I'm happy to run this, but I don't want to run it in detached mode yet. I want to check that everything's working, and then we'll add that D flag back in. And I don't want this line anymore because we've baked that code right into it, but I do need to share my data as a volume. That's not included in the image, and I do need my environment variable. That means I'm going to want to make sure I'm copying these over before I get this running. But first, let's just run the top line. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard and paste that in here, and we're going to pull this image onto the server. While that's running, I'm going to add some more. I'm going to build this file out just a little bit more. I'll call it a bash file, and I'm going to say run on server. So this is done, and it's not like in my folder here, but if I go docker image ls, I can see that that image is now available. So this is what I'm going to want to run. And by the way, I should come up and update this line here. That's going to be the name of my Docker image now. But I need access to this volume for the data, and I need my environment variables file. So I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it reg microservice. We're going to go into that, and let's see, reg microservice, and this is where it's located on my server. I'm also going to need the IP address of this server. So I'll go back to DigitalOcean, and I'm going to grab that IP address. I'll come up here, find my server. I'm going to copy that IP address. And now what we're going to do is copy this code over. I'll open up a new pane, and inside of here, I'm going to say scp-r, and I'm going to copy my data over to root at server name, and then I want to put it in root, and then it's going to be reg microservice. Down here, I should see that starting to get transferred. There it is. I have this access to this Rick and Morty episodes. This is all the data we're using for our Docker application. I'm going to need to share that as a volume. The other thing I want to do is copy my environment variable file. This, for me, has a token that I'm using to talk to OpenAI's API. So again, I'll transfer that to root at server IP, and then root slash let me just throw it here. I'm going to copy it over. And over on the server side, I'll just move my .m file into my working directory here. Awesome. So these are the things I need to share with my volume. And lastly, let's get out of this middle window. That one's served its purpose. I wanted this run deployment available. Actually, so then I actually want to do this again. So let's go back to my previous command. Let's do this one. And I want to copy this run deployment as well. Because this is actually the file that I want to run on the server. So now that's over here as well, and I'm going to say chmod plus x in order to make that executable. And let's see what we got going on here. So if I run this, we're going to pull from the registry. I've already done that, but if I run this script, it'll just redo that part. And now I'm going to run the Docker image itself using these environment variables file and also using this volume. And this should get me up and running. Now, I'm not running this in detached mode, so it's going to run right here in this current context. Let's give it a shot. It's telling me that the image is up to date, so we're good to go. But the requested images platform does not match the detected host platform. What this is saying is that I built this on a Mac, which is an ARM64 system, but I'm trying to run it on Ubuntu, which is an AMD 64 system. So this isn't going to be compatible with the server. Right, so this is actually new ground for me. So let's say this, I'm getting this error. How can I build on my Mac system so that it will work on the Linux system? So it's identifying the error, it's sort of explaining it in order to prep the language model to be able to help me. It wants me to change some settings over in my Docker desktop application. So let's give all this a shot. I'm going to go over to the Docker desktop application like it's telling me to try, and it wants me to go to settings, Docker engine, experimental equals true. Let's give it a shot. Docker engine, experimental is false. All right, let's make this true. I'm gonna apply and restart. It looks like this has been applied. Let's go over to my terminal and see if we can get this working. I'm gonna make this guy full screen and we're gonna work in here. So first I'm gonna run this docker build-x create --use, and it kind of gives me this ID for some reason. I honestly don't know why, but let's try this next line. So I wanna build it for Linux AMD 64, that sounds good. And now I need my image name. And for that I said ZAZENCODES/reg microservice. And now I wanna build it from this specific Docker file, which is called .deploy. Let's see if that can run okay. Looks like this is working, so while that's running, let me go through the rest of the instructions that ChatGPT has provided to me. And the next step is to push my image to the registry. Of course, that's what I want to do, and it's seeing like I'm going to use build-x as well to do that for to my registry. So this finished, and it took a long time. It took over 10 minutes, but it says, warning, no output specified with Docker container driver. Build result will only remain in build cache. Okay, very happy about that because now I won't have to wait another 10 minutes. But to push result to image, use registry use push command. So I think I'm going to have to do that. But I've never done this before. So if I type docker image ls, what do I got going on here? This was built about an hour ago. So this is not what what I want to do. None of these, basically I'm going to need to run a special command in order to push this to my registry. So I think that command, it looks like this. So let's try this. I'm going to grab this part here. I'm going to paste that in and I'm going to say 2, and then I'm going to grab this URL. This is my DigitalOcean registry URL. If I come back here, the next part is just, let's see, I want to push that and then dot. So I'll grab that, and then I need to make sure I'm going from my Docker file .deploy. Since this is all cached, I'm hoping, yep, that all ran right away. And so now it's just doing the specific part to do with this DigitalOcean registry. Let's see if this works. So it's not pushing this properly, and this could be due to an issue on DigitalOcean side of things. So let's hop over there and check out what we have going on. In my container registry, what do we have? It's possible that it's giving me a problem because I already have an image. It's also possible that it's too large. So the first thing I want to try is to remove this image. Okay, delete this digest. All right, let's see if we can delete that. Ooh, limit exceeded, 600 megabytes. That's rather interesting. So I think what I need to do is go ahead and upgrade my plan. My image is too large now with this new build. So I'm gonna empty my garbage actually, that might help. So it looks like this is gonna take up to 15 minutes and I just don't wanna wait. So I'm gonna cancel this garbage collection and I'm just gonna go ahead and upgrade my plan. And this should give me enough storage so that we're not worrying about anything like that. And we can just get this working. Great, so that's updated. Garbage collection was canceled, excellent. And now it looks like I have lots of storage and availability to do everything I want here. Let's go back to my terminal and I'll just rerun this same command as before. Let's see if it works this time. So this has completed and it took a long time. It took like 15 or 20 minutes, I think, to run this. So let's go over and I'm gonna refresh on my container registry. And I see that I'm now using 3.5 gigabytes of my allocation. And I can open it up here and see what I have with my reg microservice. Interestingly, there's no tag on this one that's 3 gigabytes, but the latest tag has been applied to this really small 3.16 kilobyte image. And I can check out the hash of this image. That's CB47. If I go back to my terminal over here, CB47, that's this one here. So it's this manifest list. In any case, what I want to do is try and pull this. So I'm going to copy the tag for this one right here. And let's pull that in. So what do I have going on? If I'm over on my server here, Docker PS, there's nothing running, but if I say Docker image ls, I've got this one for my registry and this was created 2 hours ago. So let's try and re-pull this with the new image. Docker pull, I'm going to paste that tag in that I copied and it does look the same. So let's pull this in now. So indeed it is pulling in 3 gigabytes of data, and if I come back up, that means that this is somehow referencing these other versions. So I wouldn't just be able to go ahead and like delete this image. That would break my container that I'm pulling from this guy right here. So because this is a bit bigger now, I'm getting an out of space error. So what I can do is I just want to scale this up to get this working. I'm going to go over here into my server, and I'm going to scale that up. So what I can do is upsize the droplet. I'm going to need to shut it down, so I'll do that right now. Then I'll come over here and I'm going to grab this 25 gigabyte one. So we'll just scale it up to the next tier up, which is $6 a month. So it's now shut down. I can do that resize. I'm going to see the progress up here. That's done. I'll go back into my terminal, and actually I need to turn this on. So I'll turn it on first. I'm going to go into my reg microservice folder, and I'm just going to run this whole run deployment. What it's going to do is it's going to pull this, which is where we failed last time, but now we have more storage space, so that should work. And once I've pulled it, I'm going to run it. And assuming I built all this properly for my right architecture here on Ubuntu, now this should all be able to run, and then I'll be able to test this out with Postman and make sure I can use my API. This is really exciting. Our Docker application is running and we're ready to accept requests. So I'm running a fast API server inside of my Docker application, and my Docker application is running on a DigitalOcean server, on a droplet in DigitalOcean. And with this command here, I was able to pull from the DigitalOcean container registry, and that happened here. It downloaded about 3.5 gigabytes, and then it started running my application. It actually was running the Docker application, which, like I mentioned, is that fast API server. So all of this I explained in my longer video introducing my reg API microservice thing. That's what's running here, and now it's up and running, and it's available on my local host. So I can test that out. Let me open up just a brand new tab. I'm going to clear this and I'll look up SSH. This is that server that I spun up, so we're going to log right in there, and I'm going to test the local host. So I'll just say curl localhost and port 8000 is where I'm running this, and let's look at the health. So I'm getting that it's status healthy. Awesome. So now let's test this from the outside world. So that's great that it's running on the local host, but I've deployed this to a server. So I want to actually be able to access this from the outside. So I don't have any firewalls applied. That means this is totally public right now. If you were to somehow in this exact moment in time know this IP address, you could do exactly what I'm doing right now. You could just paste it into your browser, and at port 8000, that's where I'm running my API, you could ask for the health of it. And that's not what I want, it's this one. And it's saying it's healthy. So this is publicly accessible on the internet. I could go to Postman, and I want to show you how this could work as a post request. So my endpoint, let's do a new request here. Make this big for you guys. Maybe not that big. And I want to do a post request to my server. I want to do the ask endpoint, and now I'm going to have to put some data in here. So inside of my body, I'm just going to write some raw JSON to put in here, and I want to put a question, and my question is going to be something relating to Rick and Morty, because my API serves Rick and Morty reg answers using ChatGPT. Give me a list of all episode bird person. So again, over in my terminal, I should see this kicking off pretty soon. There it is. So it's returned my response, and here's the list of episodes that I asked for. So lastly, if you wanted to actually deploy this on your server, there's a couple options for doing this. And what I would do is, where I'm in my run deployment, I would put this in detached mode. So I would just add a flag for D like that. And then now when I run my deployment, it's going to run very quickly because, you know, it's already pulled everything. And now I can see it's running. If I do Docker PS, it's up here. It's been running for 2 seconds. And so yet again, you know, I could come up here and I could just get the health of it, make sure it's working. And, ooh, doesn't look like it actually is working. Let's try that again. There it is. Okay, so we're up and it's healthy. And like, just so it's super clear, I'm going to exit out of here. I'm just going to leave the server. I'll leave all this stuff. So, you know, I'm not logged in or anything like that. It's just running on its own. And yeah, like I could still ping it. I could still get the health. I could still ask some questions of it. How many characters are in the show? Cool, here we go. Here's a good one. Nimbus, love that guy. Now the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to shut this stuff down. So if I SSH back in here and I go Docker PS, I can just go ahead and stop this. So I'll say Docker stop, and I'm just going to pass in the container ID in order to do that. Now when I type Docker PS, it's gone. Docker PSA, it's also been removed, which is great, but I've still got my image on here. I could also remove this image if I really wanted to clean everything up, and then that would free up some space on my server. But what I'm going to show you now is just how to shut this down so that you don't incur costs that you don't expect. Now you could turn this off, and because I haven't secured this with a firewall, I do want to turn mine off because I don't want anyone being able to make requests here. So I'm going to turn mine off for now, but this will still incur costs. So the way to prevent that from happening is going to destroy and then destroying this droplet. And once it's turned off, it'll let me do that if I want to. I'm not going to destroy mine yet, so I'll keep paying for this for now because I might use this in a future video. The other thing you might want to clean up is your container registry. So with my current setup, I'm paying about $5 a month for this. But what you could do is potentially you'd be able to downgrade to the free plan if you did pick the basic one, or you could just go ahead and destroy this in order to not incur that cost as well. So that's it. We've used DigitalOcean's container registry to push our Docker image that we built on our local machine. And then I showed how you can pull that onto a server in order to deploy an application. If you liked this video or you found it helpful, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like and consider subscribing. And in the next video in this series, I'm going to keep this image in the container registry that I've set up here, but I'm going to deploy it using Kubernetes. So that way it's going to have auto scaling capabilities, and we're going to do some stress tests on that to see how well our microservice works. If you love this content that I'm creating here on YouTube, you can check out my Patreon for my premium content, and you can support me by signing up for my free weekly email newsletter on Substack. If you want to learn more about how this RAG microservice was built, I created a long form video on that. It's 40 minutes long, and I'll link to that at the end of this one. And I'll also link to that Kubernetes video, so you could check that out if you want. Thanks for watching, and namaste.